you did it again. You joined us for another interview episode. Now, right off the bat, let me just apologize for me sounding a little bit funky. I'm after catching a nasty sinus infection, so hence the sound coming out of me. But I'm recovering okay. Thank you. Thank you for your concern. Just to let you know, you can catch us on social media by searching for Random Urban Memories. We're literally everywhere. But if you want to hit us up directly, it's rumboys with a Z or Z 101@gmail.com. Hit us with your ideas, suggestions, even questions for the interviewees that we have, or, direct feedback that you want to give to us. We'll take it all on board, and we do actually look forward to hearing from you. But we have yet to receive any emails. Do you want to talk to us, guys? Because we want to talk to you. Now, back to the subject at hand, which is my old colleague when I used to be in the hotel industry, Tony O'Brien. He is a security consultant. He used to work in the security industry and still does, but he's now kind of gone into more of a consultancy role. He operates the website securityoperative.ie, and you can find him on LinkedIn, social media, by looking for The Security Operative. He also has a book out called The Nightclub Security Manual that's available from his website directly or on Amazon. So if that's something you're interested in, I suggest you go check it out. But we're going to link all the bits in the description. So what did we talk about today? It was very interesting, eye-opening. Because even though I worked with him for a couple of years, there was a lot of things that I did not know about the industry, the things that are involved, the legislation that's holding it back or that even advanced it in the last, say, 15 to 18 years. It's a big change from them and now. We'd also talk about, old preconception of the big burly bouncer at the door, the perception that people have of the industry now, the role that a security operative actually plays. We kind of also talk about the overall build-up of the industry and all the subcategories that belong to it. And a few of them I was a little bit surprised at. And we talk about, what still needs to be improved? Where's the level now that they're at? And what's the licensing like? And we talk about a little bit about international best practices and where Ireland stands in that regard, and also how the industry itself can become better through legislation or even through self-regulation, and the cost factor that's associated with that. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, if you have any feedback for Tony or us, hit us up and we'd be glad to hear from you. And I hope you enjoyed, and maybe something different, something new for you to listen to. Give the security industry a listen in and see what you think. Enjoy.
This is Random Urban Memories, brought to you by The Rum Boys. You've seen, heard, or felt it on the streets. Well, we're here to talk about it.
In 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this interview episode. I have with me an old colleague of mine, Tony. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. Good to be here.
And
David. just David.
David.
It's just Dave. We just bring Dave everywhere.
Yeah.
What's the podcast of Dave?
He's just hanging around.
Just lives in this studio.
I keep him under the desk.
Sounded wrong on a number of levels.
Yeah, I just realized what I said.
Come on, don't be shy.
Okay. So, Tony.
Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourself? What's your background?
My background, Tony O'Brien is the name. My background is in the security industry. I've worked for the last 19 years this year in the security industry. I feel so old saying that. A lot of work in nightclubs, hotel security, that sort of stuff. I run a website now that writes blogs, articles, videos, stuff like that for the security industry. And I wrote a book about the nightclub security industry.
Class.
And we'll be linking all those in the description below.
Yeah, because I badly need visitors and people to buy that book. I've got a drinking habit that needs to be kept up.
Even if you don't, if you
so
don't,
he can throw himself out of the book.
So buy that book, guys. Buy it. And can you break down for people that actually don't know about the industry as such? We'll talk about it a little bit later, but the perception of the security industry. A lot of people just assume bouncer or bodyguard. in the simplest terms, can you actually break down the security industry into its kind of its categories and its components?
It's
huge. It's
huge. It depends on how far you want to go with still calling it security. Like if you were to take it just on the regulated side of things, you know, you've got two kind of categories. You've got the security guard. That's your security guard working in like shops, shopping centres, factories, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. Then you've got the door supervisor sector, which is commonly known as the bouncers, the nightclubs, pubs, hotels, that kind of stuff. So they were the two licensed types. But expanded, really, you got the little niche industries then, like your close protection, bodyguarding, which is not regulated in this country. It's not counted as part of the security industry in this country by the regulators. But they've also started to bring in people like locksmiths are now classed as part of the security industry.
Really?
They got to go do training, get licensed. People who install CCTV cameras, burglar alarms, they're classed as part of it. People who install safes. There's currently plans to bring in event stewards, people who work just guiding crowds at concerts and things like that. The big one at the minute is the enforcement bailiffs. They're going to be brought in. And then if you want to take it outside of regulation, like probably the biggest sector of security in Ireland, and it's not actually classed as part of it, but probably the biggest employer of actual what they would call security, it would be in cyber and information security. If you think of all the multinationals that are based in Ireland that have their information and cyber security teams based in headquarters in Ireland, there's probably more people, and this is just off the top of my head, employed in that area that wouldn't be classed by physical security professionals as security, but are probably more employment in that sector than there is in physical security in the country.
I wouldn't have actually thought of that because I would have associated that more with state security or corporate security. Corporate security, and that's one of the biggest costs that they have.
Well, if you think about your if you report somebody on a social media site, where does that go? That goes into a headquarters somewhere in Dublin, and their security teams then
go and check,
moderate or look and check it. Or, you know, people are trying to hack servers. You think of all the data centres that are housed in Ireland. You know, it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's a huge sector in Ireland. That's not even classed as part of security, but is very much so part of the security industry. Like, you know.
How did you get into security?
I've been involved in martial arts since I was 5, various bits and pieces, and then when I was kind of 17, 18, I was just kind of dropped. I said, do you want to do some security? Yeah. Here you go. Right. And it was fantastic money at the time. I remember getting into like a fast food takeaway. I was dropped outside the door my very first night and just told, no, secure the place.
That's
from what? Yeah. Just secure it. You figure it out. It was just like chaos. You know, chaos all over the place.
That's got to be one of the toughest to drop into. Right.
I said at the start of every training course I run, I say to people, look, I started off in fast food security. It is not a recommended route. Yeah. It's worse than. I remember when I moved into nightclub security. One of the guys in nightclubs coming. Start going, oh, this is nightclubs. You're going to find this much harder than what you've been doing. Like, and I was standing there going, this is ridiculously easy, man. I said, what do you mean? You mean you get to decide who comes in the front door? Yeah. You know, you're in fast food place. You don't get to decide who comes in the front door. You know, they're in the front door. They're already drunk. They've got nothing to lose at this point.
They're at the worst stage of the night.
And you're probably putting yourself in one of the more dangerous positions in the world of security. You're the only thing standing between an Irishman and a snack box at 3 a.m. in the morning. Like, you know, it's just lethal. And then to make it worse, then they build the entire front of these buildings out of glass. So literally, even if you got to put somebody out, you put him outside, you close the door, and he's looking at you through this piece of glass, and you're kind of going,
"Yeah, this isn't working."
Yeah, he's just going to break. He's just going to break that glass, isn't he?
That's what those bins are for.
Yeah. I think like at one point, I'd say in the place I was running, there was like 2-3 security working. I think their glass bill was probably higher than their security bill because every time I put somebody else, he just like came back through a window or a door or something like that. You know? So yeah, got into martial arts, and I thought at the time I was a young Chuck Norris. Like, you know, I thought I was going to be the best in the business. So I spent the first 2 years getting basically drop kicked around fast food joints and nightclubs. Like, you know, so I figured out that maybe martial arts wasn't the solution to every problem in the world. Like, you know, watching too many reruns of like Roadhouse on TV and so on. Before I went in, but yeah, that's how I get into it, and then kind of moved up to Galway. Then got working with companies where I was doing other sorts of security sites and retail and shops and pubs and clubs, and there was just before that there was fantastic money in it pre-regulation, like, you know, it was amazing. I turned down my mother's never forgive me for this. I turned down a college place, a place in university to work on the door for fast food takeaway. Because I was getting paid so much money as an 18-year-old. I remember I was getting paid 22. It was pounds at the time, 22, whatever that converts into now, pounds, Irish pounds, and it was probably about 26, 27.
That's a lot.
Yeah. 5 hours a night, 4 nights a week.
How old were you?
18.
So you've basically, all your jobs have been security?
Yeah, most of them,
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of singular task. I'm not the cleverest guy. I just get good at one thing and hope it works out in the long term.
Wow.
And the regulations, so you were mentioning the regulations, when did that come in? What was it? When did it come in, and what did it change?
It changed everything. At the time, it was fantastic money. You go back to early 2000s, it was fantastic money. So I was getting some great money in it at the time. And then, obviously, but I'm going to be honest here and say it wasn't a very nice place to work. There was a lot of people in the industry at that time who shouldn't have been in industry, shouldn't have been looking after people, But because it was quite lucrative, people got into it who probably shouldn't, with dodgy backgrounds, but not just dodgy backgrounds. You talk about criminal backgrounds being the be all and end all. It's not just dodgy backgrounds, but people who were in it for the wrong reasons. People who were in it, to get what they could, or just to take out frustrations on people who were perceived as weaker as them. They brought in regulation initially. They looked at it around 99, 2000. They got this working group together and they decided, look, we're going to regulate the industry, and they realised how many people was in it, and they said, okay, well, we're going to do training licensing. So that came in. The private security authority who regulate the industry came in 2005. They began regulating the companies in 2006, the security companies. And then in 2007, they brought in mandatory licensing for individuals, the 2 different sectors. So you either had a security guard license, or you were a door supervisor, bouncer license, or you could get both of them together. Now, I suppose some of the byproducts of that from 2005 onwards were a lot of the people who had lots of experience couldn't get a license because of the vetting, the police background checks. They were very strict on them at the beginning. It was kind of like, if you have a conviction, you are not getting a license.
And that's why they were doing it, because they wanted to get rid of all of these shady characters there.
So they come in very tight at the beginning. Now they've kind of loosened up. It's like, if you have minor convictions, we can overlook that. But at the time, zero tolerance, and a lot of experienced people left were put out of the industry because of that. So what ended up happening then was you get employers looking at going, okay, we have all these new people coming in with these fresh licenses and things like that, but I'm not paying you 20 quid an hour. You got no experience. I was paying him 20 quid. In fact, I can get 2 of you for the same price as I was getting
one good one.
This guy, And then that resulted in you had a lot of experienced guys who were on good money, but then they're seeing the people that they're working with and they're going, it's just not worth it, man. It's you're putting my safety at risk. You put me working with these people who have no experience, but because they have this badge and a lot of experience, which I think is sad. If the industry had a lot of old guys that really knew how to deal with people that left out the industry all at the same time and were replaced with people who'd done a training course, knew all about fire safety and health and safety, but had never actually had to deal with a drunk person, which is not something you can learn to do in a training course.
No, that's something that you build.
Yeah.
But with guidance, though. It's the same as many other industry. It's good to have a good mentor and then to teach you the right thing.
You can teach people fundamentals, but until you go out and apply it, and then worse again, go out and apply it under pressure. Then you don't learn to. Did
you have a mentor or somebody like that?
A few kind of people who kind of things that have been said to me and things that have been shown to me over the years. Like the thing with security, especially the door security, it's quite transient. So you're moving from place to place. People move around quite a bit. When people get a decent reputation, you're offered more money to go here, and you're offered less money to go here. A new place will open, you're asked to go there. That kind of stuff. But I worked with some. I remember it always stuck me that the guy's passed away since. But this guy, like I said, when I get into the industry first, I thought it was like Chuck Norris, and I was forever getting into fights and stuff like that. And I thought this was the way it was meant to be done. Because I always knew it was one of the problems I had at the beginning, and I openly would say this, that because I had a background in physical skills, I always thought, well, worst case scenario, I'll always have those physical skills to bail me out, So as a result, I never really focused on getting good at actually talking to people, because I always knew, look, in your back pocket you have this. But this guy called me aside one night and he said, look, there's 2 ways you can get paid in this industry, he says. You can make a living or you can earn a living. Either way, the number on the paycheck is the exact same. You just get to decide how you get to that number, And from then on, I always kind of stuck with me. Do you know what? He's right. He said, I'm coming home with like lumps gone out of me every night, and writing reports every night. And he's going home at the end of the night going, enjoy your writing your reports there for the next few hours. I'll be at home in bed,
Exactly. Smart.
Yeah.
Well, work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
And what areas are you actually certified in, as be it a trainer or a consultant or anything like that, apart from
I'm a trainer in the 2 licensing sectors first, you know, so the door security and the guarding skills. I also teach an advanced program in security management for people who want to go on and be security managers. I've done training and certification in close protection. I've done event security training, crowd safety training. I teach, I'm a certified trainer for conflict management, physical skills for a number of organizations. We've got our own physical skills curriculum that we teach. What else? Trained. I used to be a first aid trainer, but I got out of that. It's just the repetition of it just got to me. I also used to be like a manual. Well, I still am, I suppose, but a manual handling instructor. But it's not my favorite. It's one of the hardest courses to make entertaining for people.
I know, and it has to be repeated yearly now, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're looking at the same people. 11 months later, you're going, "Hi, I'm back."
But isn't there a good money, like in first aid, for example? First aid training?
Not really, because you're competing with the charities. You're competing with Order Malta, John's Ambulance, who are very, very good at what they at the training, very high level training, and can do it really cheap because they're not for profit. So you're kind of you're competing with them.
And the fringes there.
Then. That's the same with manual handling. You're competing with, well, it would only cost me £250 to send Johnny there on a training course and get him to do it for us internally.
And what we're going to do now is we're going to, now we talked a bit about your background, what you're certified in, about the security industry as such. But now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the nitty gritty of your job. And I think one question some people might want to have answered is when security reaches for the earpiece, what is actually being said? I've been asked this before. You and me worked together for numerous years in large events in a large hotel in Galway, and people always wonder
when you do like the
what. Yeah, when we do that.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
And people actually always wonder what it is that we're actually.
So there's 2 things. There's a couple of things could be happening. One, the guy is just trying to look cool as shit because he's got an earpiece in, and that's usually easy to pick up that kind of guy because he'll also be talking into his hand despite the fact that he's got no microphone there. The microphone's down here. But
yes.
If you're going to go that, you absolutely have to wear a dark suit and sunglasses while you're doing it. Otherwise, you just look ridiculous. Aside from that, it could be anything. The problem with radio networks like that is that it's not just security who are on them. There's all sorts. You could have maintenance and cleaning, and all sorts, and events. You could have security and safety and medics, and they try to put them on different channels, but it doesn't often. So oftentimes they're trying to filter out a conversation that might have nothing to do with them. But if you're having a verbal conversation out here, like we're in these headphones, you're having a conversation out here, but there's a separate conversation going on between 3 or 4 people here. It can be very hard to concentrate. It might have nothing to do with this situation or that situation. It's completely different, but somebody's talking in your ear.
But you need to keep an ear.
Yeah, but you need to keep an ear on the thing coming across. It can be. I've done it before. You're doing something like ID checks, and you're having a conversation with people. How are you having a good night? All that, and you're trying to listen to their answers. But at the same time, there's 2 people talking on the radio about an ice machine that's broken, or there's no Guinness in the small bar, and you're going and your brain is going, why is there no Guinness in a small bar? And your man's looking at you going, like, why are you asking me about Guinness in a small bar? Did I say that out loud? So it can be a lot of things, and then it also could be that there's somebody normally at large events you would have like a central control room like this with CCTV, etc. And it could be something relating to this person or their question coming across the thing that you need to get more information on before it comes in. So it could be a variety of things, but a lot of the time it's just chatter, you want to give this person the attention that they deserve because they have a legitimate question. But it's hard to do when somebody else is coming in your ear having a conversation with it could be 5 or 6 other people having a round robin conversation in your head, when you work in the industry, especially in hotels, there's a diverse range of people from all over the world that work in them. So you have all these different accents and languages coming across the radio in your ear, and
people not knowing how to use it.
People not knowing how to use the radio.
I remember we used to shout if somebody is just talking rubbish on the line or whatever. I remember we used to actually call radio decorum, please. We used to just shout in if somebody's not using it right. It's like decorum, please, as in only say what you need to say, and communication is key. So you are reporting something, you need help from somebody else, you need first aid, you need whatever. You're checking in with people as well.
But it's easy to say, but under pressure, people react differently. I've heard radio got some of them are, and I've made an absolute fool of myself on radios in the past. There's made my Big Paul. He still tells the story. He never lets me live it down about one of my worst moments on a radio. But you often hear like somebody will just come across the radio and go "Fish," and that's it. Help. but you kind of go, I need a bit more guidance than this, like, I
remember.
But as I said, that incident, I was working in a race course, and I was looking after one of the stands there. There was a lot of staff that you had to kind of go around and meet. And I met this staff member in the stairway, and he says to me, "I need to go to the bathroom. Is it okay if you stay here while I go to the bathroom?" And I said, "Sure, no problem. The bathroom's down there. Off you go." So as soon as he goes, this radio call comes back for all the kind of supervisors and managers to go to the control room for a briefing. So I said, "Yeah, stand by for 2 minutes. I'll be with you." No problem. 10 minutes later, still no sign this guy coming back from the bathroom. And I get like really angry now, like there's no sign this guy, they're all waiting for me, getting really annoyed, And I comes back across the radio for Tony, "Tony, can you make your way back to the control room? We're waiting for you to start this meeting." And I was annoyed now, without even thinking. I pick up the radio, goes, "Yeah, control, stand by, I'm just relieving a guy in a staircase here." And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, "Oh no." And the whole radio went silent, apart from like somebody chuckling in the background into the radio. And I got coming across the radio. I was like, "Okay, take your time with that." And I said, disaster, man. Like I said, some things just come out under stress. I always tell people, like, think before you talk. And I said, I've been the biggest victim of that ever. Like, this is like 15 years ago. People still don't let me live it down. Like, people.
That's a good one.
That's a great one. Yeah.
And the whole security operative now versus bouncer then. What is the most common misconceptions about the industry that they have? Well, I guess the first and foremost interaction that they have is either store security or club and bar security, and other people don't know about what goes on in the background. Misconception then versus now, and what you're trying to do to change those perceptions as well.
Well, first you'd say whether there's a misconception or not, the industry is a hugely different place in the last 15 years. I remember I often tell this, like, when I started in the industry, if you wanted to find a doorman, you found the biggest, ugliest bloke you could get a bomber jacket to fit, and that was him. That was and predominantly him. 99% male-dominated industry. Like, I remember going to work with like 3 jackets on just to make myself look like half the size. He looked like it was like, take your kid to work day. Like, I was standing next to him on the door, like, but it's and so it has changed. You look at even the demographic. When it started first, it was predominantly guys, late 40s to early 60s. Big guys, nowadays you see it's the demographic. I don't know the exact age, but I'd say it's gone down to like low 30s would be the average age. A lot of college students get in.
Younger guys now.
And people are now hiring for communication. I always say, like, the security industry, particularly the nightclub security industry, it's like 98% routine, 2% chaos. 98% of the time you're standing around waiting for something to happen, and then 2% you're actually dealing with stuff. The problem, as I saw it at the time, was that most of the guys were hired for the 2%. You were hired for the 2% of the time when it went horribly wrong. You were hired based on your physical skills, ability, Whereas nowadays people are much more concentrated on the 98%. Can you hold a conversation with people? Can you, talk nice to somebody and make them feel warm and welcome? And so that's definitely one of the if you talk about misconceptions, then I would say, like, you will always have. People are hardwired to recognize and remember the negative. If somebody has a bad experience with a door person, they remember that and they tell everybody. I remember reading a book on psychology. I think it was on sales, actually. It takes 4 positive interactions to override a single negative interaction with a person, something along those lines. And I think it's nobody ever remembers the doorman who held the door, said hello, found their ID, stopped them from getting their head knocked off, found their phone, fished their shoe out of the toilet, that kind of stuff. Like, everybody always remembers that one dick that said not tonight. That's the only one they remember.
100% right.
And they don't see any of the background of what the not tonight is. They just see not tonight, which is a terrible phrase anyway. I hate that phrase. I ban it anywhere ever. That phrase of not tonight. Like, it's but it's everybody just remembers that person. And one of the misconceptions is then that everybody is like that, because that becomes the stereotype. Because once a few people have that interaction, especially those people who only go out to pubs or clubs on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock at night. Or 11 o'clock at night, at 12 o'clock at night. they don't know what it's like working in a bar, working in a door, etc. And you can't expect them to know. It's not in their list of priorities. I wonder what that person's life is like. It's they don't see that. They think that this person just comes to work to go on a power trip, and there's a certain amount of that. There's no denying it. Like there's in every industry. Some of that's because of the nature of the role, the type of people that are attracted to it, and some of it is in the way the legislation is written, and that it's written for a person to use it on a power trip. But a lot of the misconceptions that people go out of the way to say no. And I said, look, you're working on a nightclub door. 99% of people who walk down to your door will walk straight in. But the 1% who you stop, people say, they stop everyone. Every nightclub in this country is full every weekend. So they're letting
stop it, everyone.
So people are getting in. So the 1% to stop then, but they will be disappointed. And rightly or wrongly, I would say to people, look, it's door staff and you're training, look, right, you could be 100% right or 100% wrong in turning that guy away, but you've just ruined his night. Yeah, that's the reality. It doesn't matter whether you're 100% right or 100%. You've ruined his night, and he's going to be disappointed, and he's going to tell people about that. And when you introduce alcohol into that, he's going to tell lots of people, and it's going to grow legs. These stories grow legs, and he turned me away for nothing. Like like you were naked. That's why we turned you away. But that's the bit that's going to get left out of the Facebook story and things like that.
Is there a communication between clubs or bars? To say, let's say you wouldn't let a guy get in, and I don't know, there is an area of like bars. So let's say around the Dominic Street in like Galway. So we were trying to get into beer house, and Shane wasn't. I'm not sure why I looked at Shane. It's like Shane's like, you remember beer house? So they wouldn't let one of the guys get in.
Oh, that was the night I was naked.
And then we were trying to get into Blue Note. And then Monroe's. And they're like, they're 5 meters, we were like 5 meters away from the door, then they're like, he's not getting in. And I'm like, how could they?
That's like really bad if you're getting turned away like 5 meters away from the door.
Like, I'm like, yo, try the other door. Like in Monroe, I was like, you go through the other door. So is there something like this?
Sometimes, there's a couple of things. In the big cities, they have these like crime watch systems, which is basically it's a you hire a radio. Every club hires a radio, and the manager or the head doorman will have it, and the communication amongst each other. They don't have that at night time and go, but they have it during the day. All right, there's a company that hires out these radios to the shops, and that they're all in communication with. But at night they don't have it. But what sometimes happens is you could have a security company who has a number of contracts in that area, so they're all working for the same company and using the same set of radios to communicate. So that's quite likely in a case like that. I don't know exactly if that's the case down there, but that's quite likely what could have happened. In that you have because in Galway there's only 4 or 5 companies that operate that type of work. So it's quite likely that they were either owned by the same company or they were linked in by the same radio system.
Some of those bars are owned by the same people.
So
most likely they're giving each other a heads up kind of thing. Right?
Or else you just look like absolutely ridiculous from 5 meters.
In this case, I think that was the case. My friend was just like walking around, and we were like, all good.
Because normally, like, you get somebody to get into like conversational range before you start turning them away. Like,
But he wasn't able to talk. So that's why I think it was easy. But sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
In terms of like the regulations, like when you were mentioning also so what was the cause of the regulation? So yes, we know that it was the shady characters and all that, but was it because like people just couldn't hold their temper and they just, let's say, beat it up people and stuff like that? Because
anecdotally, there was lots of stuff that kind of happening around that time. The first one was there was a significant amount of what was perceived as criminal enterprises that had started up in city centres, where they would come in and say, okay, look, you're paying for 7 security staff, but you don't need 7 security staff. What you need to do is you need to pay us €300 a week. We'll give you 1, and nothing will happen in your premises. We'll guarantee it.
That's full on shakedown.
And that's how it would happen. So then that they're living on reputation. If somebody did that, and there would be rough justice will be behind it, and that's anecdotally what was happening at that time. Then you also had around the country a number of kind of high profile incidents, and I don't want to name the venues in this, but in certain parts of the country there was a pretty famous case where a person was dragged out of a nightclub in a chokehold and brought down, and the person died. I'm going back 20 odd years, late 90s. In that instance, and again, the door staff hired for size and skills, like no background checks, no nothing.
I was asking also because there's something similar happened in Slovakia also. Like we have had few cases where few people like they were dragged out, and like let's say you had a young guy who just wanted to show that he's the boss of the security and just beat it up the person. The person died.
That was quite common.
And it's like it doesn't seem. I need to check whether we have actually regulations in Slovakia, but it doesn't seem that it's
there
like
certainly is for security guards. I don't know, does that extend to club security though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But it's strange. But it's strange, you know, like in terms of, I think people always kind of like think about like security in different places, and you don't know like how much kind of like time it takes, like, you know, like even dealing. So let's say you go out and you are the one person not drinking. Yeah, and you have all the whole group is like drinking. How much annoying it is, you know?
I say that to people, and
then you have to deal with like people. It's like this is your job, you know? Like, and
you're dealing with like, hundreds.
I say that to people, like, you know, young guys, and they want to come in the industry, and you go, have you ever gone out with your mates and not drank? And you go, yeah. Aren't they really annoying? And you go, yeah. It says, I have to deal with 500 of those.
That's crazy.
But there's a lot of young people. Again, the perception is still out there that there's a position of power, you know, and that's what they're coming into the industry. Like, I remember having a guy coming in on a training course, like 18 years old, and he comes in, he's all hyped up. It's a security training course. I said, he says, you're just doing the door security course. You don't want to be no, just a bouncer, man, just a bouncer. It's a strange occupation for an 18-year-old to want to go straight into. He goes, what makes you want to be a bouncer at 18? You know, and he goes, I've always wanted to be a bouncer. Sir, really? You know, so why? He says, I've always wanted to put somebody out of a nightclub. You're going to get like really badly hurt really quickly, you know.
That's not how this works.
Because there is that perception that it's in a position of authority and people can throw there. And we get the insults all the time, you know. Oh, you're bullied at school. You're only doing this job. You're a failed cop, or you're bullied at school, and things like that. You know, I used to get it all the time. You know, but you know, to a certain extent, it does attract a little bit of that type of person every now and again, like any industry.
Of
like,
course,
you know,
you can't filter everything or all the bad apples. And you bring me on to the point as well, and a lot of people tend to forget that, yes, of course, you need to be reaction ready if something goes wrong. Sometimes you simply can't avoid the situation. That's why you need also well-trained security staff to take care of that situation. But the sign of good security is exactly when nothing happens. You can see two guys starting to go at you. I say guys, anybody nearly starting to have a go, for you to be able to identify that situation and diffuse it before it happens. When you hear nothing and see nothing, that's a sign of good security. I think people tend to really forget that. That means you're doing your job right, you're diffusing situations where necessary. And you mentioned it a couple of times, and this is perception-wise, people don't realize they're talking, they're connecting with the person. You know, because 90%, or that's what we learned in the hotel industry as well. Like if somebody comes at you screaming and shouting or whatever, it's most likely, or a lot of times, maybe not that situation, but something else. So that's why if you do have somebody starting to get riled up, connect with them, see what's up. And they might even start being like, well, this happened today or whatever. And then you're, okay, that's fine. But can we talk outside? You know, or that kind of thing, just to bring it down.
Okay. Not tonight.
And put your clothes back on.
And mine.
Before I really
before this gets any weirder. So
why are you in my house? We could have sorted this out at work, really.
How did we even get here? So
but it's certainly the case, like that realization of it. And a lot of people who get into the industry, get into it not realizing the difference between like an angry person and an aggressive person. Like, you know? People who don't get what they want get angry. You know, that's natural. It's very, very natural. If somebody's been told they can't do something, can't have something, they're going to be angry and they're going to shout and roar. It doesn't automatically mean that they want to do you harm or somebody else harm. But you're right, a lot of it comes down to perception, like people's perception of what security is. I would say, like, security is not a thing. It's not a way you stand or a way you talk. Security is a feeling. It's what people feel when they walk into your venue. Like, if security is seen, it's failed. You know, if it's over, if it's in people's way of enjoying themselves, it's failed. You know, security is how people feel. If they feel safe in a place, they'll enjoy themselves. If they enjoy themselves, they'll come back. They shouldn't be going home talking about security. It's like the referee in a match. You know, the less you see. If a person's going home and the first thought is to talk about security. It's obviously they've had an interaction with them. That's generally not good. But a lot of it does come down to taking the time to actually engage with people on the way in the door, on the way out, or even inside. But for years and years, people were told not to. We don't want you talking to the customers. You're there to stop fights. That's it. But nowadays, obviously, people are much more encouraged to have that conversation with people. But a lot of it does come down to newer people in the industry they've done a training course, but they've never experienced hostility or aggression or somebody who wants to hurt them. Directed at them. So they don't tend to get the difference between somebody who's just venting, blowing off steam about a situation they've been involved in, and somebody who wants to do them. To do them harm,
That's a good point, because I've noticed actually when you mention it that the people who you see talking to customers in a pub or at a venue, it's usually like the security. It's not even the people who take the glasses or waiters or whoever.
They don't have time.
It's usually actually the
bar staff in a busy venue don't have time for talking to people. Floor staff don't have time for talking to people. It's too busy. Security's one of those. It's not sedentary, but it's
you're there.
You're there. A lot of times
you're mingling in the crowd, basically.
And people will come up and talk to you. And a lot of times those people be annoyed about stuff like the queue at the bar, the queue at the toilets, that kind of stuff, or have problems that they've come across and they want to tell somebody about it. They know that you probably can't fix it. My boyfriend's dumped me. I can't do anything about it. They just want to tell somebody about it because they're upset and they might be annoyed, or I don't like the way that person spoke over there. I'm going to do it. A lot of times they've no intention of doing it. They're just blowing off steam. You haven't talked about when you see people talking to people often say to them about anger and aggression and things like that. He's in your face and his loud voices gesturing, he's pointing his finger at you and all that kind of stuff. And like, I'm usually all right with that. The fact that he's just burning off energy, like he's just letting stuff go. It's when that stuff stops, you have a bit of a concern, like when you get this intense staring and stuff like that,
But isn't that the skill though? Identifying that, and then being like, no, you know what? Actually,
be chilled about
this is going nowhere. It's fine. Let him off, kind of thing.
And even some of the signs of the effects of alcohol on a person can very much be mistaken for. You talk about what effect does alcohol have on a human being? Well, it affects their balance after a while. So they tend to lean in when they're talking to people.
Yes.
It affects their depth perception, their ability to judge distance. So they have a tendency to stand much closer. It affects their vision. So they have a tendency to squint and drop their head as they're looking at you. So you have a drunk guy who's standing much too close to you, leaning in on one side, dropping his head and squinting at you. It can very much be mistaken for a person who's
an aggression.
He's going, I thought he was going to go for me. And you're going, he's just drunk, man. He's just he doesn't know any different. He's it's something that you, like you said, you learn. But a lot of it, I often say one time, it's the verbal communication, which is fantastic. It's a good skill to have. And so, but a lot of the security industry is it's a tactile communication. What's the other word? Kinesthetic. You're picking up from like non-verbal. From cues from people in the way they stand and the way they talk to you or the way they move and things like that. Like, the reading of people, like being able to read people and know what it is that they're trying to say before they even say it. Like, when they're walking up, there's blood coming out of their hands. You've got a pretty good idea what's. But it's not often as obvious as
mortgage
that.
Mortgage rate go up?
Mortgage rate.
Oh, I thought, right. Can you talk a little bit about now in reacting to situations, but something goes wrong, physical intervention? Now, what is allowed? What is not allowed? This might confuse some people. We're not talking just about though it happens for whatever reasons, but in terms of not betting the heads off people or whatever, but actual skillful legal physical intervention, maybe in different varying scenarios. As in, we're talking the gentle hand on shoulder out the door, or do you mind standing back a bit, right up until you actually have to physically intervene, and possibly even defending yourself because this is actually getting out of hand and you had no control over it. Can you talk about the various grades?
There's a few areas to look at. The aspect is the legal aspect of that, and then there's the practical, the actual skill set element of that. I suppose when I'm teaching physical skills, I refuse to teach physical skills without first teaching the kind of legal context in which you can, and most importantly, which you can't use them. And to start off, when you talk about people's your ability to put your hands on somebody inside a nightclub, anybody can put their hands on somebody inside a nightclub, but should you?
Yeah.
You know, is the question to ask. You know, from a legal point of view, and I spend a lot of time, and you know, I often say when I'm speaking in public, you know, from the Tim Ferriss podcast, you know, not a lawyer, don't play one on the internet, go check it out for yourself. You know, I spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time as a consultant, you know, in the High Court. As an expert witness, talking to solicitors and barristers and judges about reasonable force, when it can and can't be used. And the difficulty with talking in an environment like this is it's very easy to say things in a sterile environment. When arms, legs, sweat, drugs, you add all that into the middle of it, it becomes much more difficult. You know?
It's much more fluid situation.
So if we talk about it purely from a legal point of view, bars, clubs, wherever you want to call it, are private property. And the owners of those properties are allowed to take certain measures to protect people within those properties, up to and including using reasonable force to protect those properties, people in them, etc., from somebody being assaulted or attacked, or from somebody trespassing in the premises. So that's the legality. I could spend days talking about the situation where you can and can't. Then it comes on, okay, well, is using force then necessary to get this person out? And if the person's already flailing, then absolutely. Often people in the security industry often talk about, I had to do it. So there's very few situations in the security industry that are time critical. You have to deal with now. If it's ongoing, you have to. But a person who's just drunk and you want to ask them to leave, you've got time. You can invest time in doing that. But necessity then comes in. Is it necessary to do something? And is it necessary to do something right now? Or have you got time? Can you wait for support? The travesty that I often see in nightclubs is somebody getting hurt or injured, either a security person or the patron, because of ego. They went in to take the person out by themselves. And I said, look, it's not that you're not physically able to take that person out by yourself. I absolutely have confidence you'll be able to take them. But you're working in a venue with 25 other security staff. There is no reason in the world why you should be taking somebody out by yourself. It just does not exist. You know, that the reason, you know. So then it comes down, you have then proportionality, and the reasonable force thing as a legal term is, it's a terribly worded thing because it implies that you have to use physical force. I often talk about reasonable actions, you know, rather than reasonable force. You know? Because force, like the law regards, you know, telling somebody to get out or you're going to put their arm behind their back as force because you've threatened to do it. You know? Force, the law regards presence as a use of force. Simply preventing a person, that's a use of force. It's reasonable in nearly all circumstances, but it's a use of force. You, by your presence, have prevented a person from doing something. So they look at, did you try and exercise options at those low levels, presence and asking, etc., before you moved into the higher levels of force? You know? So you have to be seen, well, if it was an option, did you try it? And then it gets into the acceptability of the force, as in the relation of your size and skill against their size and skill. This is where things like gender can come into it. So you talk about, you know, nowhere in the law does it say it's against the law for a man to put his hands on a woman, or a woman to put his hands on a man, or a man to put his hands on a kid, or a woman to put his hands on a kid. No in the law does it say. The law doesn't make a distinction between gender or age or disability or anything like that. You know? But from a point of view of acceptability, we know that society looks at things through certain prisms. You know, there might not be a law that says that is illegal, but society looks at it and goes, that is wrong. That should not happen, and that has to be taken into account sometimes when you're using force as well. Like, you know, the size of you versus the size of them. I suppose traditionally over the years, security staff would have been hired because of that size, and now it's becoming much more, you know, more evenly matched, if nothing else. Like, you know, so they come in, and then you get to the actual physical skill set of teaching somebody how to hold somebody, you know, how to physically intervene in the situation. And like I said, you can do training courses. You know, I teach a training course. You can do it in a day, you can do it in 2 days, and that'll teach you the fundamentals. But teaching that, then you take that out of the environment and you put it into a nightclub dance floor. What changes? You know, what changes is you're no longer doing it in a room, and we'll even teach the skills as in you lie on the ground and just flail, and they have to try and restrain you on training course, and they'll get the hang of that. They'll get, okay, I can do that. I'm getting the hang of this now, you know. But you add into that then
other people around
you, slippery dance floor, dark, strobe lighting, the fact that this person's probably not going to feel pain. The fact that most people don't go to a nightclub by themselves, so he's going to have
few people around,
friends with him, and the fact that now physiologically in you there is a real threat to your safety. Not because in a night you can simulate as much as you want in a training room floor, but there's no threat to your safety, so you're not getting that same adrenaline, cortisol release into the system, you know. And your fine motor movement's going to be out. Plus the fact that, but you're doing it in a nightclub, you might have done that 3 or 4 times already, so you're going to be tired and fatigued, and it might be 10 minutes before you're due to finish, or whatever the case might be. You're wearing a big puffy jacket. All those criteria change, you know. So look, you can't just go and train a course and say now you're trained. You know, it has to be kind of practice, and that's the value of having a good continuous team in the same place, because they get to work together, and you kind of know, look, he always goes for the left hand. Like people used to like working with me, one of the reasons being I'm left-handed, you know. So naturally I will move to the guy's right side. It just comes naturally for me, you know. You have to practice both sides, but whereas most people who are right-handed naturally move to the person's left, and that traditionally then would leave the person's right hand still free, like you know, free, or somebody who, or if you got 2 right-handed people who's trying to, no, it's not the be all and end all. You have to practice both ways.
But it's little things.
Yeah, it just comes natural to me. Yeah. And the people who would work with regularly would always go, no, he's going that side, like, you know. So like the skill set in itself to teach it, but then it becomes, like I said, it becomes tactile, because I know that as soon as I put a hand on a person, I'm going to get a reaction. You know, now I don't know what my next technique is going to be until I get that reaction. You know, I can say, okay, if his arm is here, I'm going to do this, but I know that as soon as I put my hand on him, his hand is going to move. You know, I know this is on YouTube and somebody listening, but I often say people who've been put out in nightclubs very many times, and it's probably not the easiest thing to describe without the video. And you say, and as soon as you walk up to them, they join their hands or tuck their hands in their armpits like this, and you go, you've done this before. They like jam their arms right in their arm and drop their elbows down. They're like this, and you go, you're not putting me out. You know.
Again.
You know, look, you've done this before. You know, you're not going to win this argument. It's easier if you just walk, and they go, okay, I'll walk. And you go, well, that's easier for everybody. But because I suppose they've been used to the fact that as soon as nightclub security come in, straight away they're hands on, which they're not supposed to do unless it's an emergency situation. You know, but sometimes if you have a person who's less experienced, they overcompensate for a lack of experience with going
all the way
first,
physically,
and then coming back from it, if you know what I mean. You know. The problem is a physical intervention. Once you commit to it, you're committed. You can't twist a guy's wrist and then say, okay, I'm going to let you go now.
You have to hold.
You've aggravated the situation.
Because if you twist my wrist and then let me go, I'm going to punch you in the face, because you just twisted my wrist, like, you know. Whereas if I'm walking you out and then you start resisting and then I twist your, you know why I'm twisting your wrist, like, you know, and I'm not letting you go because you're resisting. But a lot of guys do, they overcompensate for a lack of practice, which let's go too far and then think if we can roll back then afterwards, you know. But when something goes pop, there's no rolling back from that, like, you know. Because it doesn't matter now if you let his wrist go now, his wrist is broken. No, it still hurts, you know, and you may as well just start writing zeros on the end of a check now at this point.
That's it. See, that's again the large factor as well, the insurance factor and stuff like that. And I think you've had plenty of experience where things have gone wrong in the unregulated days, or even the regulated days, but not well trained situations where then the premises has to come up and, like you said, start writing zeros on check because people were harmed needlessly, or the courts have decided then, not having been there in the situation, but like you said, talking in a sterile environment makes things sound absolutely horrific. You take them out of the moment and the context, whether right or wrong, it's a liability issue then as well, and that's what a lot of people don't think, and that's why I think now industries or customers of security services are more aware of it now. They say we do actually need better guys because this will in turn cost us less. You know,
we live in a civil law society. People are more likely now to sue you than they are to get
society.
You know,
very
people will sue you for and I said when I'm going to train with venues, managers and venues, so look, the reality is you can do absolutely nothing wrong and still lose money because you have liability for your occupants. If something happens, you're liable. You know,
100%.
You can do nothing wrong. You'll be the best in the world, and still something will. Is
there some specific sort of an insurance for like security or like bars in terms of like the security factor?
So there's one of the reasons why a lot of venues now have gone to security companies instead of having their own security staff is just because of that. So a venue has to have insurance like public liability, employment liability, all that kind of stuff, But insurance, security companies have to get a specific type, particularly door security company, a specific type of insurance called deliberate act insurance, which covers them for the deliberate acts of their employees. Yeah, venues who employ their own security staff find it very hard to do that because the insurance companies are looking at them going, "No, why would you need that?" The fact that you think you need that tells me everything I need to know about how you're doing it. Whereas a company can, and what it does then, it spreads the liability because if somebody comes in and gets hurt by security staff, let's just say I'm Murphy's Bar and I have my own security person. He works directly for me, and a fight happens, and whatever happens, he injures a person in some way. They're going to sue Murphy's Bar, and I'm going to pay a significant amount of money.
Gotcha.
If I bring in a security company and I have a contract with them that indemnifies me for their staff's actions, he's still going to sue Murphy's Bar and he's still going to sue the security company, but it's at a maximum now 50% is all I'm paying out, and my indemnity then should get me a little bit more, so the insurance company might pay out 80% and I only pay out 20%, if you know what I mean.
Kind of everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
The security company is prepared for this kind of thing. Yeah.
They're still getting sued, but as a venue, I'm very much in the clear. Now, there's pros and cons to that because the reality is, if you have a security company and you don't get the continuity that you would have if you had your own security staff because they have a much higher turnover.
For how long do companies or buyers normally sign the contract with these companies?
Some don't even sign a contract, just on a week-to-week
It's
basis.
like
Some of them it's an annual service agreement, etc.
Gotcha.
I think the most I've seen is a 3-year contract. That's the most I've seen. Most of it is every year or 2 years. Some don't even have. It's just ring the security company if you need guys. It's which is just, I suppose, difficult to prepare because if you're ringing a company at short notice, you're going to get whatever they have left over. Because they're going to have priority given to all of their regular staff to make sure that they have regular gigs that they're working in. And if you're ringing them with 2 weeks' notice or a week's notice saying, I need 5 staff, you're going to get whatever they have left over sent to you. Who aren't in regular.
What was the craziest the situation that you have ever seen, or that you guys have to handle in terms of like a bar, or like the most like the riskiest?
It's been a few. We had a night in the place we worked. You were there at the time. The guy got stabbed in the neck.
What?
The guy almost died one night down the club that we worked in.
Was that pre-2006, was it?
Yeah. The guy got stabbed it was a fight, a group of people, big guys, started a fight with this small Australian guy who was on a date night with this girl, and he was only on holidays, and the guys come over and start hassling the girl. And he kind of tried to stand up for her, but they were all much bigger than him, and security was on the way actually over to it, and one of the guys grabbed him and he just swung with the bottle, and the bottle hit a pillar as he was swinging it and broke, and as it landed on his neck, it sliced his neck, and blood just went everywhere. One of the door staff actually, Johnny, actually saved the guy's life that night. He dragged him out into a fire exit, ran in behind the bar, got like a bunch of tea towels, put them on his neck, and knelt down on the guy's neck until the ambulance arrived in. But the guy's mates saw us dragging him into a fire exit covered in blood and thought we were killing him. So they all came rushing at the fire exit. 4 or 5 of these guys who were fighting with these 4 or 5 guys, trying to keep them back away from the fire exit. Your man's bleeding to death inside the thing. The guy who hit him sliced his finger from his thumb down to his wrist on the broken glass. So he's outside covered in blood, but as regards risk to us, there was very little risk to us there. It was a big risky situation. Guy could have died, but it was little risk to us. Most door staff, most experienced door staff that I've met over the years will say that the worst injuries that they tend to get is in the situations that they don't expect. A lot of door staff, the worst injuries they get is from a woman over the course of their career. Certainly in mine, worst injury I've ever gotten in security. And I've been lucky over the years. I've gotten small bits and pieces, stitches here and there, nothing major, but worst injury, I had 19 stitches in my back from a lady with a high heel shoe.
What the fuck?
Breaking up a domestic across the street.
Hit you or?
Well, it's a boyfriend and girlfriend fighting each other across the street, and we're standing across on our door, and we're looking across and going, well, legally we don't have to do anything. But personally, you're looking at this and you're kind of going, we can't just stand here and look at this. So we go over, we restrained the guy, and we picked him up and we brought him back across the road to our venue to hold him there, So she gets up off the ground, she takes off her high heel, she comes over and she just starts beating us with the high heel for hurting her boyfriend. They're wearing like white shirts, and I was getting it down.
Such a common thing.
Yeah, I was getting it on my back. My buddy was getting it on the back of his head, like covered in blood. And eventually, she lost her high heel. You know, took flight. Calmed it down. Police were called. She didn't want to make him a statement against him. He wanted to charge us with assault. Guard said, "You're not charging them with assault." So took them away. Anyway, took two of them away. They said, "Come back if you want to make a statement against her." So we're kind of stuck in a Mexican standoff, like, you know.
We shouldn't have helped.
What is this? I'm so glad I helped you.
Yeah.
But like the nurse up in the hospital didn't make it any better. Like sitting there, white shirts, security written on them, like covered in blood, like, you know, sitting there. She walks over and we're kind of laughing at her because we're kind of going like, thinking from a psychology point of view, if that was two guys fighting, no way in the world we would have both restrained one guy and turned our back on the other guy.
Yeah. But it was
no
just
way.
because it was
it's just
a girl.
that perception of threat that's in the, you know, the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain is going like, no, she's less risk than because she's a lady, she's less risk. It's that kind of cultural thing in the back of your head that you forget about. You know, I was saying, no way. But the nurse comes walking over and she looks covered in blood. She says, Jesus, lads, what happened to you guys?
Yeah.
I got beaten up by a girl. And the nurse bent down and didn't make it. She goes, Jesus, lads, you've got to come up with a better excuse than that before you tell your mates. You know, so, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
She had the mustache.
It's like this size, arms.
What's an interesting point you bring up there? Yeah, that it's that ingrained thing that you don't even give it a second thought.
Yeah.
But
So most people say it's the unexpected instance, the ones you never even think of. You get a big angry guy coming towards you, you're prepared for it, your psyche's in the right place, your body mechanics are in the right, you're prepared for it, you know. It's the sneaky ones that you don't see that sometimes results in the
but you can see this also, like when you watch the fight videos on YouTube, like the street fights that girls have. Like they're more vicious than guys usually.
I did some reading on like criminology and things like that. I do a lot of reading on like behavioral sciences and psychology and stuff like that, and criminology and stuff. So I think the statistic, I could be completely butchering this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The statistic is that men are 9 times more likely to become physically violent than a woman is. But when a woman becomes physically violent, she becomes much more physically violent than a man does. And they're much more effective at physical violence than men are. If you think of the way men fight for dominance, and we fight with like blunt force trauma. I'm going to take my fist, the hardest part of my body, and I'm going to drive it at full speed into the hardest part of your body.
Quite predictable.
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah.
In its way,
And whoever does the best blunt force trauma will win. Yeah, women don't do stupid stuff like that. You're causing injury to both of us here. You know, it makes no sense. It's like stags butting heads. You know, women are much clever. They're going to take the God-given weapons that they were given. You know, teeth, and claws, and high heel shoes, and they're going to aim them at soft target areas like eyes and throat and other places that shouldn't be struck. You know, it's a much more effective way of thinking about violence. You know, think about pure violence if you're teaching self-defense. That's exactly what you teach people to do. Take parts of your body where there's limited risk of injury and drive them into parts of their body that has high risk of injury. You know? But men, no. I'm going to punch you really hard in the face loads of times, and you're going to do the same to me. And whoever falls over first loses.
Like apes.
That's effectively what it is.
And you mentioned something in regards to things that some people mightn't even think about, the property line kind of thing. You know? The duty of care, apart from the patrons inside. That also brings me on to something, the famous citizen's arrest. Okay, so you're on your property line, the venue you were paid to safeguard, and something happens across the street. Now, legal implication is you don't have to particularly do anything for whatever reason. How does moral issues come into that, and then now we're talking legal again?
Because it puts the individual security person in a whole lot of moral dilemma. So legally speaking, I don't have to do anything. Even in the premises, legally speaking, I don't have to do anything, but I have a duty of care to the people who are in the premises from a civil point of view. You know, across the road, that's gone. Now the risk I take now is that if I choose to go across the road and deal with that, my employer, if I get hurt, will wash their hands of me.
That's the ramification of it. He says that was not your job.
That wasn't. You were not working for me. You chose to go over there and deal with that. And if I hurt them, my employer will wash their hands of me and say, well, hold on, he wasn't working for us across the street. Sue him, you know, as an individual. So that's the dilemma that I have as an individual. I have to recognize that if I'm going over, it's a personal choice that I'm making to go over there and deal with this, you know. Now, that doesn't automatically mean arrest. You know, that could be just breaking up you can use reasonable force.
Absolutely, But just then to lead into the the legal grey
Of
area. then
holding
of
a person. Yeah.
Holding a person and waiting for the...
So there's...
guards. We're actually doing a citizen's arrest, an actual one.
Well, there's no such phrase in Irish law as citizen's arrest, but we have a principle of arrest. So we have a law, Criminal Law Act 1997.
Yeah.
Section 4 of that says that any person may arrest without warrant a person who they witness or who have reasonable grounds to suspect is in the act of committing an arrestable offence or has just committed an arrestable offence.
Oh, yeah.
So any person, and it not doesn't say guard, any person. Yeah. Now, what it says then is you can use reasonable force to effect that arrest, but once you do that, you have to hand them into the custody of a guard as soon as reasonably possible. But there's a very important term in there, and that term is arrestable offence. So you got different categories of crime in Ireland. You've got like summary offences, which is the low level, and then you've got indictable, which is ones that are dealt with in the circuit court, and then you've got arrestable. So what they wanted to get away was private citizens making arrests for really minor, littering, no tax in your car,
Exactly.
You get Johnny Do-Good coming down, you got no tax in your car, I'm holding you for the guards. They didn't want that, obviously. So they have this term of
It's like, I got it.
Just waving them around.
big van just rounding up people. So there's this arrestable offence, and they define the arrestable offence as anything for which the maximum penalty in law is 5 years or more is an arrestable offence. Now, it doesn't say the person has to get 5 years. So let me give you the example of you've got like a Tesco's down the road there. Yeah? So somebody walks into Tesco's and they steal a Mars bar, and security stop them. Are they going to get more than 5 years in prison for stealing that Mars bar? No chance. Right? But the reality is that they've committed a crime, and that crime is theft. So and if you look at the statute book, the maximum sentence for theft in this country is 10 years. So, therefore, theft is an arrestable offence. So the security person doesn't have to be able to judge what they're going to get for committing this crime. They just have to know what the crime is and what the maximum term is. So let's say something like, it becomes difficult then when you're talking about assaults, because there's different types of assaults in this country. You've got section 2, 3, 4. So you have this basic level assault, which is an assault where there's no harm or injury caused. So somebody pushes you, shoves you, spits you, that sort of stuff. Then you've got a section 3 assault, which is an assault that causes harm. Somebody impacts, causes an injury or harm to you. Now, for the first one, the maximum you can get is 6 months. So it's not arrestable. Somebody pushes, pulls, shoves you. That's not arrestable. Somebody causes harm or impact. That all of a sudden becomes a 5-year sentence and becomes arrestable. So that's why it's very important for security staff to actually know what it is that they are
Right.
arresting this person for. But basically what it says, if you see somebody committing this offence, a serious assault, it could be something like selling drugs, it could be something like a sexual offence or possession of a weapon or something like that, you can hold that person using reasonable force until the guards arrive and transfer that person into the custody of the guards. Now, where sometimes issues do come up is it says that you can prevent that person from use reasonable force to prevent them from escaping from your arrest. It doesn't give you the power to bring them anywhere. It says you can prevent them from leaving. It doesn't give you the power to bring them.
Because that would be
tie them up, put them in the
kidnapping.
car, and then that's it. That's
exactly.
something else completely.
So let's just say difficult enough situation. A person hits somebody with a bottle right in front of you outside your door and then runs. And you go, right, I got to catch this guy. So you take the decision then to go and catch this guy. And you catch him 400 yards down the road and you use reasonable force to stop this person. Now, you've used reasonable force and you're entitled to do that and you're entitled to hold him for the guards. There's nothing in law that says that you're entitled to bring him
back to your premises.
Now, you can add, look, you can certainly, if they want to go with you voluntarily, or you could argue that, well, for my own safety, I had to bring him back. But there's nothing in law that says you can bring them anywhere you want, because that would be kidnapping.
Right, that's it. Come on,
kidnapping is
we're
never
going
good.
You are in trouble.
Try not to kidnap people. A lot of paperwork involved.
Sounds like he's speaking from experience.
Form for everything.
It's like we're talking about reasonable force. Like you get to the very top of the pyramid, you have like a presence and verbal and stuff at the bottom. Then you have your restraints. Then you have like impact strikes, and at the very top, then you have lethal. And I always say to people like, try and stay away from lethal. Like there's a lot of paperwork involved in lethal force. You got to like get rid of bodies and stuff like that.
So many other factors. And in terms of medical interventions, do you advocate for first aid?
Yes.
For everybody, all security operatives, quite simply to be a more effective?
Yep. Well, there's a couple of things. One, for your customers, first of all, first aid training. If somebody comes to you looking for help and you can't give that help, especially in an emergency situation, it turns into a bigger emergency than it should be. Number 2, for you, the most likely person in a pub or nightclub to be hurt or injured is you. You're the one in the most violent situations in any pub or nightclub. You know, so even if it's just to treat you for yourself, or you know, who's most likely, you or your colleagues, then it's an important skill to have. So if you get hurt, especially if you're working the place on your own, who's going to come and help you?
Nobody.
Nobody. Yeah. How many times do you see people running to help security staff? It just doesn't
like nobody would do it because they would be probably like afraid that something might happen to them, or so they'll be liable.
Yeah, it's an important one, because, and then as you go around the place, particularly if you're working for a security company, you'll be sent to various different places, and you're kind of relying on that place to have got the right equipment, you know, on site. You know, so you go into some places and they have like fully stocked like medical rooms, you know, all the gear and equipment and defibrillators and stuff like that. But that's rare. You go to a lot of places and you open up the first aid kit and there's like,
and it's half used already.
Half used. And I always remember a story from working in fast food takeaway, you know, big takeaway, but this guy came in from outside. And he had a piece of glass stuck in him. He'd fallen on a piece of glass. Yeah. So a piece of glass is sticking out of his arm up here. I think he'd fallen on his own wine bottle. So he's walking the street with a wine bottle, and he tripped and fell, and the wine bottle landed on the glass stuck in his arm. You know, and it's like, okay, sit down there, grab the first aid kit, open up the first aid kit, big first aid box, and inside it is like some plasters, some wipes, a tampon, a can of Dutch Gold, and some Panadol. Right. I kind of look at her going, Jesus. Okay, you're going to have to drink this, and I'm going to just kind of wedge this tampon. But it was, ever since I always used to keep like a small like first aid kit with the basics in it, because it is so important. The most likely person to be hurt in a pub or club is the security person, and if you can't treat yourself, nobody else is going to do it for you. Like, you know, and you can't just say, okay, the venue will have first aid stuff there, or the venue will have somebody who's trained in first aid. I've taught first aid courses, and at the end of a first aid course, say to me, you got all the skills now? How do you think it is? Oh yeah, brilliant skills. I know all the stuff, but I've never used them. And you go, why have you just spent 3 days in a training course? And go, why would you not use it first of all? And you go, I'm terrified of blood. You know, why would you do a first aid course? Oh, work gives you like €40 extra a week if you're a first aider. So I said I'd come and do the training course, like, you know. Okay. So so like, there's the thing was, you can train somebody to be capable in first aid, absolutely. I'm not a fan of making it mandatory as part of security training. Yeah. Because if you make something mandatory, it doesn't mean that the person's going to be capable of actually
doing it.
Yeah. I can teach you how to put on a bandage, or I can teach you how to, you know, splint something, or whatever the case might be. Will you be able to do that when there's blood going all over the place and people shrieking and crying and things like that?
No, not a lot of people.
But in terms of
can do that, actually.
What teachers used to say to me is like, at least be here so that you might learn something by accident. Because a lot of times, like for example, if you want to do your driver's license in Germany, it's because they have different duty of care laws there. So
because most of them know how to drive, as opposed to this country. It's just making us go along. Like
they actually get the right driver's license.
But it's mandatory for all drivers to do a little bit of
it's the same as Switzerland.
And it's and the whole thing about like, well, it's off topic now, but it's illegal for you to ignore a car crash or ignore. You're obliged as a citizen to at least attempt to help. But the point is, even though it's very basic first aid course, some of it's kind of sticks. So would that be an argument against that? The whole thing, like, okay, maybe you did a 1 day course of at least the basics, maybe. Would that work as a mandatory thing?
And I would say, like, the problem I have with making something mandatory is forcing someone to do something they don't want to do can often turn them against it completely, like, you know.
Kind of turns you off.
If you want somebody who you want to do first aid, you want them to want to do first aid. If that makes sense,
they're
like,
more likely to be effective at it.
They're more likely to be effective because if you get somebody with like a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. If you get somebody who's just soaked up 15 minutes of training course, go, oh yeah, well, I did this 15-minute thing one time. They can very much make it worse very quickly.
15 minutes first aiders versus 1 3 day full course is much more effective.
Or even a person who sat there for 3 days and did nothing. Didn't you know, and things to remember. Whereas a person who was willing to engage and get stuck in and things like that, you know. So that's what I say about it. That's the danger of making anything mandatory, making them do it, like, you know, is a danger. Do I believe it's a good thing? Absolutely. I think everybody should have it. Like, you know, it's even as a life skill. I mean, working in any industry,
absolutely.
If
you've got kids, you should know how to do first aid.
No,
There is no excuse for not knowing how to do first aid. If you're a parent who's supposed to look after the safety of...
Do they teach it here in a school?
No.
Or like do you do...
No, there's
No.
courses.
We used
If
to
you're
have,
lucky,
like,
work can send you on a course.
We used to have, like every half a year in Slovakia, like you would have first aid course as a throughout your primary school and then high school also.
No, we take much more
Every
about
half
I know
year.
you'll be
Every
fine.
half year.
Attitude
You'll
to
be fine.
injured kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just good to be fine. Don't sue us, okay?
Oh, that's interesting.
And in terms of
No, you
the best practices, because we have a question about best practices, where do you think, like, so do you think that the practices for in Ireland are good, the best ones, or are they, like, when you compare them to international ones, where do you think that Ireland is, and what is kind of like lacking?
So, yeah, a lot of people think that a lot of people in the security industry, you know, the automatic reaction is, oh shit, man, shit, crap,
Yeah.
crap place to work, crap. I said, you know, well, you've never worked anywhere else. You don't know where you lie in
Yeah.
between. I've worked and trained in other countries. Like, you know, I've been lucky enough to be able to go to other countries with training and stuff like that, you know, and see other practice in other countries. And like, there are countries where we are much more ahead. And there are countries that are much more ahead of us. You know, I've got a lot of friends who are in this industry in the States and stuff, and they talk about the criteria over
different
there.
game.
There's nothing. They don't have anything over there. There's no training. It's exempt in most places. And training, they are like this thing. I remember speaking to a friend of mine over there about this. This thing, if you've ever been to the States, where a lot of the bouncers, as they call them over there, sit on a stool inside the door.
I have seen
I've
this.
seen
Yeah.
it. I've seen it
And I
also.
go,
They
never
just
give it a
sit there.
second thought. Actually.
How do you do access control from inside your venue? Like, they're already in your venue. Now you got to put them back out again. It's much
Yeah.
easier to just keep them outside. Like, you know, it's much more straightforward.
Why
You know?
did you say that? I'm
Yeah.
actually thinking of all the venues we were in. That's true. Yeah.
And they go, it's just a cultural thing. It's just always been the way, you know, in these places where it might be cold outside, the guy doesn't want to stand outside in the cold on it, so he just sits.
So he just sits inside.
Sits
Yeah.
inside the door, like, you know.
Okay.
But like, as regards how we are, I would say we're kind of middle of the table.
Okay.
You know, in regards to things. Now, could it be better? Yeah. Is there stuff that the industry could do, that employers could do to make it instantly better? Absolutely. Is there an appetite to do that? Probably not, because the market is so competitive at the minute. You're looking for any kind of price edge that you can get on people. Most security companies are operating somewhere between 6 and 8% profit margin. Like, you know, it's very tight. Like, you know,
It's very tight.
yeah.
And actually, you bring me on into another question. In terms of legislation, what's holding back, apart from the industry itself, which could do a bit of self-regulating or at least bring to the table some ideas, legislatively, what is holding back the industry? What needs to improve? What laws need to improve for you to be able to grow in these matters?
Well, I've argued for years that there should be a piece of legislation that governs security
Just
staff.
like a lot of other industries.
Like a security officer act, we'll say, that gives them specific powers to do specific things. Right now, any security person in the country has no more right to come up and approach you to do anything than anybody else. You're working in a bar. The security person has no more or less rights than the glass collector. In, regard, in
that's
law,
true.
you know, in law, that glass collector could do everything. Now, the security officer probably has a different skill set for it, but no more rights in law.
Just another employee.
Just
as
another
such.
employee of the premises, like, you know. So a separate act giving them specific powers to do specific things, you know, and that might be something as specific as specific powers to search a person, specific powers to hold a person for the guards.
Yeah.
In circumstances other than that's an arrestable offence. So let's just say a person comes out to you and says that I've just been sexually assaulted inside your nightclub, and that man there did it to me. Yeah. As a security person, I have zero right right to do anything. This is one person's word against another. Okay. I can say to him, look, would you mind just waiting around here because she's at to make a but if he says, no, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Nothing to do.
You cannot do anything.
I cannot do anything.
That's crazy. I would
about
think
it, you know?
that it was already in place.
I walk up to a person and I say, somebody says, that guy over there, he was just up in the bathroom and I think he's got a knife in his pocket.
Yeah.
Aside from asking him to leave, I have no power to do anything with this person. You can ask a person. You can ask, and they can say yeah. But if I have something on me, my chance of saying yeah is minimal. But and he says no, I don't want to be searched. He goes, okay, leave. But I potentially now sent a person with a knife
Out into the after
after serving him alcohol. sent him out onto the
to the streets.
There's nothing I can do about that. Now there is a counter argument, and the argument is that there are people, because the standard of entry, the training course for entry engineering is so low. It's quite a low entry. It's quite a low barrier to entry. It's not a difficult course to pass. That the standard within the industry across the way, and there are some fantastic guys in the industry, is not ready for that piece of legislation yet. You know what I mean? So until you weed out what we used to call the shirt fillers, so the way it's set up is you have to do a level 4 qualification to get into the industry. Now, level 4, QQI level 4 on the national framework, the junior cert in Ireland is level 5.
Okay.
So the education is just below juniors, and that's the level.
There's no certain I don't know, yearly or 5 years assessment or anything like that.
Once you're done, you're done.
When you're in.
So when you do that course, there's a number of assessments. You do a written report assessment.
Yeah.
You do 2 practical demonstrations. You show how to maybe use a radio, or maybe how to a search, or maybe how to use a fire extinguisher, and then you do 40 questions, and that's you're done. Now, the licensing authority, the pass rate is 50%. You have to get 50% or more. Okay. The licensing authority doesn't care whether you got 51 or 99. You get the same license. You're entitled to work in the same places.
That makes some sense.
It's just either in or out.
You either got more than 50, you didn't. So a person can get 51% in a qualification that falls below junior cert, and they're qualified to work in the security industry.
But then you make a very good point there. Then we're talking cost again.
Yeah.
That's always the other side.
That person will come in and work for the lowest rate.
But then it gets more expensive to be certified.
But the problem for a venue is when that person walks through your door, they have a license. Yeah. You don't know whether he's a 51 or a 99.
Yeah.
He has this card that qualifies him to work in the industry.
That's interesting. It's something you don't even think about.
So the venue themselves don't know. So it's trial and error for the for the venue as they're going through it.
So you think that what would help the industry in terms of money and quality would be increase the qualification requirements?
Well, I've often talked about one, put in piece of legislation that gets you a graded. So I was say, okay, you've got your entry level qualification, and that requires you to pass these tests.
Yeah.
And when you get that qualification, you're allowed to work in places like concerts, crowd control, toilet areas, queue management, etc., etc. If you want to physically remove people from a venue, you have to go and do these other legal and physical qualifications. If you want to be a head doorman or a security manager, you have to go and do these qualifications, and all of those qualifications grant you extra power and extra responsibilities, and with that then has to come extra
money
payments.
That's incentivizing it then. Yeah.
It incentivizes you to go and pay for a training course, and you to invest the time and effort and things like that. But there's no incentive to do that, because right now I can ring you today. You own a security company and say I need 10 guys in my nightclub tonight. I need 9 guys and a head doorman. Right. All of those 9 guys, regardless of the levels of skill, training, experience that they will have, will be paid the exact same. So the guy minding the toilet is getting the same money as the guy who's in charge. Across because they all have the same qualifications. So in terms of legislation, that's what I've argued for years. But there's no appetite, because that would cost people. It cost the venues more money. It'll cost
but in the long run, it would save money.
But
again, that's long term thinking. Because this investment in the industry might have its own payout, say in 5 to 7 years, once you start cycling through generations.
If I'm a nightclub promoter, I've only got a 3-year contract with this venue, or 2-year contract with this venue,
exactly.
And I don't know if I'm still going to be open in 2 years or 3 years. So why would I pay an investment now to save me money in 7 years?
Exactly, that thing. Yeah,
doesn't make sense. So the onus is on somebody. Either has to legislate for it and say, okay, if you were in a nightclub, you have to have 2 people at this level, 3 people at this level, and you can have the rest at this level. It has to be legislated for, but there's no real appetite to push in that direction. Because of cost, I suppose, as well. There's no real push for it. It'd be fantastic for the industry, because it would get rid of a lot of people out of the industry who physically cannot come up to that standard. They're not.
So just keep them at the same level as they are.
Keep them at the same level all the time. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, it has been absolutely fascinating, and thank you very much for your insights. Also for the people out there, do keep that in mind the next time you walk past somebody who's doing security. Just give it a little second thought as to why they're doing it, the motivation, what's behind it. And if something happens in a nightclub or a club or something like that, just think about a skilled and good security operative the very long checklist that has to be checked in your head in a split second
constantly.
before you act or react. You know, give that a thought, people out there. You know, and now what we'll do is, will you let the people know how they can reach you, your pages, social media, your book, anything like that? Let the people know how to find you.
If you want to go online, the website is securityoperative.ie. And on there you will see all of the resources. We've got loads of free downloads up there for venues that they can do incident reports, examples of good statements, examples of good practice for checklists. We've also got the blog every week that comes out on the site. On Facebook, we're on Facebook, just The Security Operative. We're on Twitter, @The Security Operative. We're on LinkedIn, The Security Operative. The book is The Nightclub Security Manual. It's on Amazon, or you can get it through the website. Ships worldwide in 2 days, in and around. You can reach us through info@securityoperatives.ie. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer questions. I put aside about 3 to 4 hours a week just to reply to questions and queries I get into the website. You know, as I said, it's gotten big. I was saying the first year of the website, we're struggling to get a couple of hundred viewers a week. Now it's gone well over 1,000 people a week reading it. You know, so
and global. You showed me some statistics earlier.
Yeah,
very global, but it's very niche. It's very specific to an industry.
Yeah.
You've common interests globally.
Last year, 2018 was 102 read in 102 countries around the world.
Whoa, that's nearly the whole world.
That's a lot of countries. It's been read in countries that I didn't even know there was people in.
What a security!
That's incredible.
Shit, we got people. We need to secure them.
It's the same with the book. Like somebody bought a copy of the book in the Cayman Islands. I was there.
What?
I didn't know there was nightclubs in the Cayman Islands.
Thanks.
All the bands are like.
It's been a pleasure. It's been very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me in. Yeah.
Thanks.
And maybe at some stage we might do a follow-up episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If people have questions or anything like that, happy to come back in again.
Absolutely. Guys, if you have questions out there and you don't contact Tony for some reason, you can contact us, rumboys with a Z 101@gmail.com. And, well, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Let's get back under the desk.
Yeah. Do I need to leave for this bit?
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
See ya.
You managed to listen to the Rum Boys talk on Random Urban Memories. Just like and subscribe where you can on all platforms.